Despite a split in their season opening series, starting pitching is a reason for Dodger optimism. Greg Vanney can probably expect a fine from his post-Galaxy match press conference. And is Kawhi Leonard's load management privately a problem among Clippers players? Good morning, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It's April 3rd, 2023. I am back in Portland, and as you can probably tell, it is snowing. It is misery right now. But reminding me of the sunshine from back home is going to be something to put a smile on my face. So let's talk LA sports. If you like the content we put out, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yeah, comment. Keeps me intrigued on the road. So before we go through the news and notes, look at the scoreboard. Yesterday, Anthony Davis once again went nuts, scored 40 points, and LeBron James added a triple-double. Lakers 134, Houston 109. The Lakers, guess who is just a half a game ahead of them for number 6? In other words, out of the play-in tournament for the NBA Western Conference. Well, the Golden State Warriors and the Clippers. Targets acquired. Meanwhile, over at the Ravine, Noah Syndergaard allowed just one run in a 6-inning debut, but Arizona defeated the Dodgers 2-1, and the Kings have qualified for the playoffs for a second consecutive year. That would be with a 4-1 victory over the Vancouver Canucks. Alex Iafallo scored twice. Meanwhile, back at the Ravine, Colorado's in town to play the Dodgers at 7. Michael Grove, he was 1-0 for LA last year. He's going to take on Ryan Feltner of the Rockies, who was 4-9. Now, I will absolutely grant you that a 2-2 opening weekend isn't exactly the most inspiring debut, especially when you consider how high the hopes are normally over at Dodger Stadium. But first, the Dodgers are tied for first place in the NL West, and there are other pluses to mention. Dave Roberts really was intrigued with what Dustin May was coming up with a couple of nights ago. Said May, who by the way is only 26, is a better pitcher than what he was before Tommy John surgery. In Saturday's win, May needed just 84 pitches to get through 7 innings. The dude before was always just trying to flame guys out, just one right after another. His pitch count would go through the roof. The man had only passed 6 innings 6 times in his entire career. Now, he could have gone into the 8th if Roberts had so chosen. So there's one reason. And then we mentioned Syndergaard a moment ago. Now, if you remember during spring training, we were talking about Noah Syndergaard, about how he wanted to recapture the days when everybody was calling him Thor because he was so powerful in the flowing blonde locks and whatever. He boasted that he wanted to crack 100 miles an hour on a regular basis during spring training. But on Sunday, his fastest pitch was just 94. Now, Dave Roberts said he's not asking Syndergaard to crack 100 miles an hour. Quote, we count on him for innings, for length, to go deep, and to be efficient. That's kind of what we're expecting, unquote. Will Smith behind the plate added that Syndergaard, quote, is not 100 miles an hour anymore. It might get there. Who knows? Finally, another positive note here for the Dodgers. Tony Gonsolin threw a 40-pitch bullpen session before Sunday's game. His next stop is to go out to Camelback Ranch in Arizona, where there he will face live hitting. So, still trying to come back from tweaking his ankle in spring training. Galaxy manager Greg Vanney is likely going to get fined because after Saturday's 2-1 loss to Seattle, he just flat out lost it in a post-game presser. I mean, he wanted a handball called against the Sounders in stoppage time. The player for Seattle, he was in the penalty area. Had it been called a handball, it would have been a penalty kick. Vanney was screaming. He went so far as to pantomime what the Seattle player was doing and why that should have been a handball, totally showing up the referees. That stuff has fine written all over it. But let's pause for a moment, just for a moment. How legit is Vanney's claim? Here's my problem with Vanney's claim. It is a judgment call. Your judgment might be different than mine, might be different than his, etc. Very, very rarely is it so bloody obvious when it's handball. You'd have to catch somebody trying to dribble the soccer ball like Curly Neal in an old school Harlem Globetrotters game for that to be called, where it's that obvious. Now, I'm not trying to sit there and claim that the referees are right. That's not what I'm saying. Although there were a number of analysts who actually said that the referees were right with their decision. My thoughts on the handball or non-handball is completely different. You were not begging for a handball to win the game. You were begging for a handball to tie. What does that mean? That means you were begging the referees to bail you out from a loss. Good luck with that. The referees are not here to bail you out from a loss. You were losing for a reason. You were not playing, the Galaxy were not playing good enough to win. There is a very big difference there, a huge difference. Moreover, a tie, it would not be that big of a coat of paint over this rotten picket fence that the Galaxy have been building so far this year. They've played 5 matches. They haven't won yet. The roster is poorly constructed. The players don't necessarily fit in a 4-3-3. And the Galaxy are flying to Houston, which, by the way, even though the Dynamo traditionally stink, I've been to see the Galaxy play in Houston twice. Tied once, lost the other. The Galaxy struggle in Texas. And then, of course, they come back to LA where they face LAFC in an El Tráfico match with a fan boycott. So my point is this. It may have been a handball. It might not have been a handball. The Galaxy have bigger fish to fry right now. They're winless in 5 games. Had they got the tie, they still would be winless in 5 games. So they made this big deal over the weekend about how Kawhi Leonard, he was playing back-to-back games for the first time in 2 years. Wow, he is really stretching himself, right? Wrong. Because saying that he played on back-to-back nights turned out to be a bit of a technicality. Leonard did not play in the second half of Friday's game. He only played part of the first. And oh, by the way, here's where it gets a little stranger and where I start to wonder about the Clippers. I don't have any inside dope on the Clippers, but ask yourself this if you were in the locker room. The other players weren't told that Kawhi Leonard was only going to play the first half. If you're going into a game and you see everybody suited up, you're assuming that they're good to go for the entire game. Russell Westbrook didn't even know. Quote, I didn't know if anybody knew, but that was something that Kawhi and the medical staff figured out. But no, I didn't know Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing the second half. Not knowing who's going to be available, that affects people. That affects everybody. And oh, by the way, especially when it's your team leader, just deciding when he can play, and it's not necessarily for an injury because he played the next night, is load management. The players are not going to go on record, at least not now. They might a couple of years later. The players are not going to go on record now. But is load management for Kawhi Leonard causing major problems in the Clippers locker room? They have no idea whether or not he's going to play at any given time. D'Angelo Russell for the Lakers was pulled from Sunday's game with a foot issue. Now, considering Anthony Davis and LeBron James, I realize that foot issues should give us all a cold chill down the spine, but Darvin Ham said it was just precautionary. means that probably D'Angelo Russell is going to play in the next Lakers game. Last week, I mentioned how USC now will have a red zone target that they did not have before because they recruited a tight end, Deuce Robinson, a tight end who's going to outmuscle people in the red zone for jump ball kind of throws in the corner. Here's the thing. They have more than one option now. USC's receivers last year weren't that tall. Deuce Robinson, tall. They also have a guy coming in, Jacoby Lane, a freshman, who is 6'5". So now Caleb Williams has another option when the Trojans are in the red zone. At spring practice, by the way, the offensive players are saying that defensive lineman Keon Bars, who was a transfer from Arizona, is making the biggest impact in spring football. He was a second-team All-Pac-12 player last year. Now, nobody is trying to say that this guy is going to be the second coming of Tuli Tuipulotu, but they are saying that just from sheer strength, the Trojans should get a little bit more penetration against opposing offensive lines next year. ESPN, switching over to the Bruins, ESPN is ranking Dorian Thompson-Robinson 6th among draftable quarterbacks in the upcoming NFL draft. Having said that, just because he is the 6th best quarterback doesn't necessarily make him a first rounder. ESPN is forecasting that Thompson-Robinson gets drafted early in day 3. They also didn't mention who they think is going to draft him, but they once again repeated that they believe the Philadelphia Eagles are the best fit for Thompson-Robinson, despite the fact that they have Jalen Hurts as their franchise quarterback. Here is something about the Bruins I did not know. Chip Kelly is just 27-29 as UCLA coach. And that is after 2 really solid years, which shows you how terrible the UCLA program was when he took over. So, as we chat about spring ball for UCLA, I have a question for you if you're a Bruins fan. Considering he's only 27-29, does he really deserve as much power in the athletic department as he has? Because the Bruins do not sell out the Rose Bowl. They don't even come anywhere near close. They're lucky if they get about a third of it full. They have yet to win a bowl game with Chip Kelly. And yet, the guy got a fat contract extension. His former defensive coordinator, Bill McGovern, was not fired after a subpar performance last year. Instead, he was moved to basically a desk job and gets his entire $900,000 salary. And then Kelly goes out and hires a friend of his as, quote, director of leadership, unquote. A post I've never heard of, and I've been covering football for decades. Isn't that a little odd? All of this money that he gets to throw around? If you're a Bruins fan, you tell me, does Chip Kelly have a little bit too much power, a little bit too much juice in the athletic department? Meanwhile, for UCLA basketball, Jalen Clark won the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year award. And that is the first time ever that a Bruins player has done so. Clark, by the way, to repeat, he has declared for the NFL draft. And the Rams, by the way, have given Matthew Stafford a second $30 million bonus. That was as part of the contract extension that he signed after winning the Super Bowl last year. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. If you're a Dodgers fan, how optimistic are you, even though they split a home series with Arizona? How good do you think the Kings actually can be coming into the playoffs? And is Kawhi Leonard's load management an issue? And if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Rain or shine or snow. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.